Hey guys, it's Kevin in my review for Minari. So what Minari is essentially about is we center on this Korean-American family who basically in the 80s, they are very tired of factory work and things like that. They really don't want to be in this environment anymore, so they decide that they're going to move instead to this tiny Arkansas farm, basically trying to, search for that American dream that they've heard about so often. However, this becomes quite a challenge when their arrival of their grandmother arrives, and this starts to kind of divide the family. Some of them want to stay here, while some of them are worried how this is going to really interfere with the family overall. So Minari, overall, I was very excited for this film, and I'll just be honest with you, I did not think this was a film I would be able to watch early, but thankfully, I was able to watch this film early at a film festival. I had access to it from one of my friends, and he got me a ticket for it, and I was very happy about that for sure, because this is a film that pretty much since it came out at, Sundance, I've been hearing about all year. Everyone said this is, one of the best films. This is a film you need to see before the year ends, and so I was really hoping that there would be a way to seek this film out, and thankfully, I was finally able to do so. I finally have seen it, and I will say right now, Minari absolutely lived up to the hype for me. This is by far one of the best films of the year. That is probably a much different film than you really are expecting, but I think is portrayed in the best way possible. It's a very heartwarming film that I think is really going to affect a lot of people in a very impactful way, but we're just going to get into it right now. And I'll just say right now, easily one of the best things about this film is the cast here. If the cast in this film was not as good as they are, I don't think this film would be as good, but thankfully everyone, I think, kills it in this film. I don't think there is a single weak link within this entire cast. But that being said, the absolute standout of this film, and someone who everyone is going to be talking about, is Steven Yeun's performance here as Jacob, who I've liked Steven Yeun a lot, going all the way back to The Walking Dead. I've always seen potential in him. I've always seen him as an actor that has given some really great performances, in Burning, even smaller roles like Sorry to Bother You. I've always thought he's a really strong actor for sure, but let me just say, he has never been quite as good as he is in this film, and it's mainly because this is not a very showy role. This is a very restrained performance from him, but you get the sense that Jacob is someone that is very passionate. He's able to really portray that, I think, in the fullest way possible. You understand Jacob's passion, but you also understand how much this is getting to him, the emotion that this is starting to weigh on him. There's one scene especially in the third act, and he doesn't even need to do much. It's just a simple look on his face, and I don't know how he was able to do it, but it just got me almost to the point of tears, and I thought he just did such an incredible job with that. I loved everything that he was able to do here. His performance, this is one of those performances that could have been seen as very sort of robotic, but Yeun just brought so much passion to this character, and he really put his whole heart and soul into it, and I just absolutely love what he ended up doing here, and if there is any justice in the Academy, he will be nominated for Best Actor next year. I think he absolutely deserves to be in there. This is one of the best performances that I have seen all year, and I just love what he ended up doing in this film. But someone else that I think is very much should be recognized, and someone that very much impressed me, I would say, was actually Alan Kim, who plays the young boy in this film, David, and I thought he did an incredible job. David is someone that he's told throughout his entire life that, he should be doing all these things, but he doesn't really get to be like a normal kid in this circumstance. He's kind of trapped, in this setting. He's not able to do things that a normal kid would do, but at the same time, he's kind of at a crossroads, and I thought Kim did a really great job bringing liveliness to to the character, but also really showing the emotion that David is going through. You know, you can see his confliction as a character, and I was very impressed by his performance here. I thought he gave one of the strongest performances in the film. Hanye Ree, as well as Jacob's wife, I thought was fantastic. I loved her performance in this movie, especially, I think, in the back half of the film, she really gets to shine. I've never really seen her before, but I hope I do after this, because I thought she was fantastic. Yeun, though, I absolutely adored in this film, who plays the grandmother Sonia, who is basically just the warm sort of spirit that you would want in a grandmother, even if she is a lot more eccentric and a lot less traditional than you would expect. And I thought she did a really great job with that performance for sure. I was very impressed by her in this film. She has a lot of amazing scenes here. Will Patton, I thought, was really good. Noel, Kate Cho, really everyone in this film, I think, gives very strong performances. Like I said, I think this is easily one of the strongest ensembles of the entire year, and I think the film is worth watching alone just for their amazing performances. Alright, but now we're going to get into the directing and the writing, which, once again, is one of the best elements of this film. Something that you need to know going into this is that this film is very much based on Lee Isaac Chun's childhood, and it really does show, because it feels like this is a film that he's been wanting to make all his life. It feels so passionate, you know, similar to how Yeun put a lot of passion in his performance. Chung put so much passion into this directing. It almost feels autobiographical in the sense, you know, it does nothing about this feels like a fictional story. It feels like this is something that's actually happened to him, because it did. And I think the way that he directs this film, he does a really good job with it. It just feels very natural. Yes, this film can be very emotional at times, but there's also a lot of hope to it. He really is trying to tell a very hopeful story, and I was very impressed by that. I think he easily could have delved into some really melodramatic territory if he wanted to, but he didn't. He kept it true, he kept it honest, and I was very impressed by his directing. It's some of the best I've seen of the entire year, but his screenplay as well is easily one of my favorites. I've heard a lot of people say that besides Steven Yeun, this film needs to get a Best Screenplay nomination. I would absolutely agree with that, because the story in this film is so good. It's a very simple story. You know, you get the sense very early on that the family had to move here because they didn't want to be put in an unsafe environment. But you also see throughout the movie, there's a lot of conflict going on. Right from the beginning, Jacob and Monica are disagreeing a lot. Monica wanted to live in a more, you know, city type environment. She's not used to this rural area where they have to do things all on their own, but Jacob is someone that wants to do it, and he wants to do things all on his own. He feels like it's his duty to do so. He feels like he's not being a good husband or father if he isn't constantly trying to help things for his family and trying to develop this land and doing it all on his own. And I think that in itself is a very strong conflict. But then you think about characters like David, who, again, I think is one of the most interesting child characters that I've seen in quite a while, because while he wants to be a regular kid, he's in a situation where he can't really be. But then you look at his grandmother in the film, who really is trying to get him to feel more lively, is trying to, you know, make him do things that a normal kid would do. And I think that there's a lot of really good story elements there. The way they set up all these characters is really strong, or how they set up the grandmother, how she isn't your typical grandmother really at all. She doesn't cook, she doesn't clean, she is way more outspoken. She's okay with letting David get away with things that, you know, he normally wouldn't, with, you know, other grandmothers normally wouldn't, but she still has that love. She still has so much warmth for the family, and I adored that about this character. I thought that all the characters, again, were so well written in that way, and they do such a great job of setting them up that when we eventually get to the central conflict of this movie, you care that much more because of how well they take time in fleshing everyone out, and that's something I really appreciated with this film. But I also think what the film is trying to say about this specific, lifestyle, this family, I think is also really, really going to touch a lot of people's hearts. It's a film that I think is very effective in that way. And even the way they portray things like, say, racism, they don't do it in a way that you would expect them to. It's not done in a very showy manner. Nobody in this film is really bad or good. Everyone is just kind of like human. They're all kind of going about things in their own way. Even this family that the David ends up happening upon, you think they're going to go in like a xenophobic type direction, but they actually don't do that. And I was very impressed by that within this film. That's something that Chung said he really wanted to do. He wanted to portray this in the most authentic manner possible. And I think he really did do that. He really does explore this from all angles. And that's something that I was very impressed by, and I really liked the way that was done within this film. And again, the way the film explores certain relationships here, the main two being, one, the relationship between Jacob and his wife, which, like I said, is pretty contentious. These two, they are trying to stay happy. They are trying to stay, they are trying to have a really good marriage, but you can tell that what's going on is starting to interfere with it. And then you contrast that with David and his grandmother, who, again, is someone that is very lively, and she is just trying to lighten things up. She is just trying to make everyone stay together, even if she's going through her own health struggles. So I think the film does a really good job of really fleshing out every character as much as it can. And like I said, I think the way the film just presents all these characters was very impressive to me. There are many moments in this film where it feels like they're going to take them in a very cliche direction, and they don't really do that. Everyone just feels very real, almost like they could be real people. You start to connect. I think you're going to start connecting with these characters as if they're real people in that way, and that's something I just really appreciate. Everyone just felt really believable, and no one really felt like they were like a movie character, and I really appreciated that Chung decided to do that. I think it just made the film just feel that much more authentic overall. The dialogue as well, I think, is also pretty much perfect. Everything just feels so natural. Some of the lines almost feel like they could be documentary-esque. It really does feel that real at points, and I think that's something that they did a really good job with when it came to this film. So yeah, this is easily one of my favorite screenplays of the entire year. I think the film is worth watching alone just to see how good the screenplay really is, and I was very impressed by it for sure. In terms of cinematography, I think the cinematography here is absolutely brilliant. Just the way that they showcase this farmhouse that they're on, the look of it, you really do feel like you're there when Jacob is hard at work and he's trying to tend to these crops, or he's trying to get water, or he's trying to, build another part of the house. You really do feel like you're there with him, and I thought that was very effective, the way that the cinematography was handled in this film, which again, should not be too much of a surprise considering it is A24. They usually have really great cinematography, but this film's cinematography, I think, is very visceral, and again, it's just really, for people who have been in situations like this, it really is going to make you feel like you're there. The score as well, though, is something that I absolutely adored. I think the score that the score in this film that was provided is one that really blends with the film's very tender sort of feel. It's a very warm feel, and I think Amel Mazzari did such a good job with composing this film. I've been a fan of his since The Last Black Man in San Francisco, and his score here definitely did not disappoint. I really enjoyed his score throughout the film, and I really wish that I could listen to it again, but again, it's not out yet in terms of like the soundtrack and things like that. I wish it was, but unfortunately that is not the case, at least as of yet. And the editing in this film, I think this film is pretty perfectly paced. It does have some pacing issues in the beginning. It did take me a little while to fully get into it, but I think that the film is only better because of how slow it takes to get to things. I think the fact that it is slowly developing these characters, I think that it makes the pacing that much better, because that last 40 minutes of the film is definitely something you're not going to forget. I think the last 40 minutes of this film are pretty much perfect. I loved where they ended up going with it, and I think it just makes the film that much better overall because it does something you don't realize. And even what the title represents, Minari, you're not going to understand until a certain point in this movie. And when you do, it just makes it that much more endearing. And that's something I really appreciate with this film. So again, there's a lot that I really am loving about this film. It's definitely, you know, there's so much love about it. Is there anything that brings it down? Well, I do have one small flaw, and that really is in regards to Will Patton's character, who, as much as he does try, I just really couldn't get into that much. I found his character to be pretty flat. We get the sense of what he's going through, but I just didn't find him to be all that interesting. I wanted to see a little bit more of his story. I wish we could have gotten a bit more of a look into his personal struggles, because it always felt like that wasn't really, and I understand, like, the focus is the family, but I just didn't really, you know, feel that connected to his character, and I think they could have done a better job with that overall. But overall, guys, Minari is easily one of the best films of the entire year. It's very endearing. It has an amazing cast, a really great score, some gorgeous cinematography, a script that I think is really going to touch many. It's a story that we have seen done before, but it goes in directions that you really aren't expecting. It is a film that really is trying to be as raw and authentic as possible. Like I said, the performances here are amazing. Yeun especially, I really hope he gets some Oscar consideration. It's definitely a film that if you have a chance to see it, you need to see it as soon as possible because it's definitely one of the best of the entire year. And I am going to give Minari overall an A. Like I said, I don't know when this film is coming out, but I really hope it comes out in like January or something like that, because if this film does not get to qualify for Oscars, that's going to be a real shame, because I think there's a lot of things that this film does deserve and should very much get, and I hope that it does come Oscar season. But that's really for my review of Minari. Let me know what you guys saw this movie overall. If your thoughts on it, we'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.